and I will kick things off. In the meantime, probably some more people will tune in the crazy heat over here in Europe. In today's stream, I want to show you guys how I'm using the Brighter Data platform to help me form a bias for the remainder of the week, but also for the remainder of today. Now, let's start off on the weekly time frame. And we can clearly see that this week, the new Brighter Data platform, the Brighter Lens, what it's called, definitely clearly showed us the way. Now, let's go to the 1 hourly time frame on the weekly. We can see that the weekly formed a high towards the upside and started expanding towards the downside, the current weekly candle event. If we click on our bias that was bearish at the beginning of the week, we can clearly see that throughout this entire week, especially after this lag to the downside over here, the weekly candle was clearly behaving like a weekly candle when we compare to history that was going to close bearish. And it still is behaving like a weekly candle that is going to close bearish. If we click on closed bullish, we can see that it has been leaving these distributions towards the downside. In my opinion, looking back in hindsight, when this impulse towards the downside happened, we had a confirmed bearish bias for the week. Now we can quickly use the replay tool over here and go back to this point in time, because over here we can see, when we look at this metric over here, that 60% of bearish weeks had the high in by now. So when price was trading over here and we had a bearish bias, that was already quite an interesting metric. But at this moment in time, we also had to be aware of the fact that it was not really trading within the middle distribution band of a typical bearish week. If we would close on closed bullish at this moment in time, we would see that the price was trading around the median level of this bullish distribution band. Okay, so at this moment in time, in my opinion, there is not a confirmed bearish bias yet, and in my opinion, you cannot look for shorts just yet. Now, if we now click on close bearish again and we replay the current event, and by the way, there's now also an option to replay previous events. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but you can also replay previous events. So the weekly candle of last week or the week prior to that. Now, if we are going to play the replay mode over here, and this impulse towards the downside happened, at this moment in time, right, we are only at Tuesday morning, 6 a.m. in the morning, we have a confirmed bearish bias as per the Brighter Lens platform. Because what we can see is that, first of all, this metric over here is showcasing to us that 61% of bearish weeks had a high in by now at this moment in time, right? So there was only a 40% probability to sweep the high and still close the week bearish. 59% of bearish weeks put a high in later, which means that if we draw out the typical high timings for a bearish week, the high got formed at a typical time. 26% of bearish weeks put the high in further above the open, which means that the high got put in at a typical level as well in terms of distance. At the exact same time, we can also see that price is now trading at the median level of the bearish distribution band. If we now click on close bullish, we can see that it's starting to leave the 50% distribution band over here at the bottom. In my opinion, as soon as we woke up on Tuesday morning, my bearish bias that I formed at the beginning of the week was confirmed by the Brighter Lens platform. Now, at this moment in time, what we also knew is that only 9% of bearish weeks had a low in by now. 91% of bearish weeks put the low in later, and 99% of bearish weeks put the low in further below the open, which means plenty of distance left to be made to the downside, plenty of room left for new lows to be made to the downside as long as the weekly high holds. And that is also what happens. So as this chart plays, we can see this metric and also this metric, they update in real time. And we can see that a bearish bias that has clearly been established by the Brighter Lens platform has been playing out so far this week. And this is also interesting, because at this moment in time, we see a very aggressive lag to the downside, right? And price is reaching the lower levels of the 80% distribution band, as you guys can see. typical level to start taking profits on your position, because you know at this moment in time the price is overextended towards the downside and that potentially we can start seeing a bounce towards the upside. Okay, so as soon as these middle 50% band, you know, gets left behind and we start pushing towards the lower band over here, we know price is overextended to the downside. Perfect opportunity to take some profit. And now afterwards we can see that if I leave the current replay mode, this is where price is currently at. So now looking at where price is currently at, we can also see that, one second by the way. So now where we are currently at is that we are trading a little bit below the median level of the bearish distributions. When we're looking at all weeks of history, I kind of want to adjust this by the way to the last 2 years. We're trading a little bit below. Look at the last 51 bearish weeks and their distribution. We can see that 94% of bearish weeks had the high in by now, which means very, very low probability to take out the high and then still to close the week bearish. We are expecting to close the week bearish. These metrics, obviously, they have remained the same throughout the entire week because this high hasn't changed. Same goes for this these two metrics. They are based on the timing and level of this low right there. They do not update in real time. They only update once we form a new low. We can see 23% of bearish weeks at a low in now. And now this is an interesting metric, right? Because this metric is showcasing to us and updating in real time that 77% of bearish historical weeks still would form a new low to the downside. And that tells me that the current weekly low right here potentially isn't safe, and potentially there's a probability, a pretty strong probability, that we will still take out this low towards the downside based on the Brighter Lens platform. Now, when we draw out the typical low timings and low levels for bearish weeks, we can also see that in terms of time, around 80% forms it after this time over here. You can also see that this metric, right, is confirming that 81% of bearish weeks put the low in later based on the timing of this current low right there. Now that is quite interesting in my opinion. So therefore, still a high probability to take out this low, and therefore no longs until proven otherwise. And people that have been longing with their stop beneath this low as their invalidation are using a low probability invalidation, in my opinion, for their stop loss. Now, let's quickly remove all these drawings. What I want to have a look at is this target. So let's say this is going to be my target. I want to click on reached target, and it's going to show to me all the weeks of the 103 weeks of history that we are looking at that would hit this target, so this level, throughout the week. And we can see that currently the current weekly candle is clearly behaving like a week that will still hit this level over here, AK, that is still going to take out the current weekly low. We can even expand it a little lower, and we can see that, you know, approximately 29 out of 103 weeks, so 28% of all events, looking at both the bullish and bearish events simultaneously, would hit this level over here. And looking at the distributions of all those weeks, price is currently clearly behaving like a week that is going to hit that level. So in my opinion, no longs until proven otherwise, and a high probability to still take out the current weekly low. Now, what would invalidate that thesis? In my opinion, probably if we start trading above today's high. If we push above today's high, you know, towards the upside, in my opinion, in that case, low probability to still take out the weekly low, okay? Because then you're also leaving this middle 50% distribution band, start trading towards the upside, you might see some buys and liquidity over here, and it will be unlikely to still take out the low, because in that case, the week is not trading like a week anymore based on the distributions. That is going to hit this target over here. Let me know if there's any questions about that, guys. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, perfect. In that case, let's have a look at the current daily candle for Bitcoin. Since we're still looking at the beta, these candles still need to update. Yeah, there we go. Let's go from reach target, did not reach target, to close bullish, closed bearish. Click on close bullish. Looking at the last 1 year of data, we can see it's clearly leaving the distribution band of a candle that is going to close bullish. Looking at close bearish, we can clearly see that currently price is behaving like a candle that is going to close bearish, as you guys can see. This is where the candle open is at. So looking at the current distributions, there's a high probability that today's candle will close bearish, aka that it will close below this level that I've marked out over here, around 16.9k. Clearly behaving like a bearish daily candle. Now, let's say throughout the current day, we want to target new weekly lows. We can also, by the way, see that 82% of bearish days had the high in by now. So if we were indeed going to close the day bearish, we want to hold the current daily high. Also, the daily high got put in at a typical time and also at a typical level in terms of distance and also in terms of time. When we look at bearish daily candles, we can see that only 17% of bearish daily candles had the low in by now. So still a high probability to form new lows towards the downside if we were indeed to close the day bearish. And also lots of room left for more displacement to the downside, because 99% of bearish days put the low in further below the open. We can see these are the levels. So around 50% of bearish days would approximately take out that low. Now, what I want to do is that we have just established the current weekly low as our target for the remainder of the week. Let's say within this bearish daily candle, we want to hit that target. I want to switch to reach target. I want to adjust my target towards the weekly low right here, and I can click on reach target, and it's going to match all the daily candles from the 261 daily candles that we are looking at, that we're going to hit this target based on historical data. And then we can see that 53%, 53 days out of 261 days, so approximately 20% of all events, would reach new weekly lows today. Is price behaving like a day that is going to hit this target? I would say right now it's starting to behave like one, but you want price to stay within these boundaries over here. So preferably you do not want to see a pullback if price was indeed gonna take out the current weekly low today before the daily candle closes. So now, you know, translating that towards a chart over here, this was my plan earlier today. We didn't get a tap into supply, so that is quite unfortunate. We did already hit that intermediate target. So now let's say we are indeed targeting new weekly lows over here. We have also just established that if we want to take out the weekly low, we do not want to push outside of these distribution bands anymore. So the distribution band is basically aligning with the current New York session high over here as well, or maybe even above this drop-off point. So you can say, okay, you know, if you want to look for shorts, not that I am right now because I'm currently not trading, you can put your stop above that high, targeting new weekly lows. The RR is not really there, but still a decent trade potentially. Because we know that, let's say price would now push above this high over here again, right? Around 61.2k. It's also leaving the middle 80% distribution band. And in that case, it's highly unlikely to then still hit this target throughout this day, because it's leaving the distribution bands of all days that we're going to hit this target throughout that day. So in that case, it becomes highly unlikely. So that way, you can also use the Brighter Lens platform to determine clean invalidation points for certain theses. The thesis in this case is to hit new weekly lows throughout this daily candle. Now, in order to hit new lows throughout this daily candle, aka to hit this red line as our target, we do not want to leave these distribution bands anymore. The high of this massive drop-off candle is aligning above those distribution bands and therefore makes up for a nice short target. Do you guys understand how I'm using the Brighter Lens platform to determine, in this case, an invalidation for a potential short trade? Well, to be honest, SN2, I personally do not use the did not reach target feature yet. Marnik is, so Sergio Tesla. So you should ask him. Because I personally also do not know, because I've only been using this feature. This is the only feature that I also do not really know how to explain, to be 100% honest with you. All good. Hopefully Sergio can do a stream or write-up on it. Just make sure to tag Sergio in the chat and he will make sure to do a write-up on it, my friend. I will push him to give you an answer, okay? So currently we can see that, you know, that trade that you potentially could have taken is already playing out towards the downside, which is quite interesting. So let's see if potentially today the target is going to get hit. But let me know if there's any questions, doubts, or requests that you guys would like to answer me. But this is basically how I'm using the Brighterlands platform live to form a bias for the remainder of the week, to form a bias for the remainder of the day, and also how you can execute trades based on that bias using the Brighterlands platform and even find invalidations for it using all the features. Let me know if there's any questions, guys. For regular users, it only has closed bullish/bearish stats, right? Yes, that's correct. Well, Kochi, this feature over here will be a premium feature. So on Monday, we will release the platform at our new website, and it should also be a tier 2. So you have tier 1 and tier 2. And tier 2 will have all the premium features like this one, but also, for example, it will have more events and other premium features as well. So tier 1 will only have closed bullish and closed bearish. So on Monday, you can get access to this feature as well, if you want to, of course. We are already reaching new weekly lows soon. Yes, waiting for next Monday to see which plan I'm gonna be purchasing. Awesome. Honestly, my friend, I can give some more explanation on that already. On Monday, we will release tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 2, this Monday will still be extremely cheap. It will only be $10 more probably than tier 1. So tier 1 will be the standard $50 a month, and then the tier 2 will probably be $60 a month only. Why? Because we want to add more features and events along the way, and as we add more features and events along the way, the price of tier 2 will gradually increase towards $100. So right now we'll start only at $60, so we'll be very cheap. So my recommendation is, at least for now still, I would definitely take the tier 2 because it's only $10 more, and in that case you have a lot more features already, a lot more events already, and yeah, that's the way that we're going to release it on Monday. I hope that makes sense. But obviously, you can also just start with tier 1, and also make sure to keep an eye out, for example, on my personal brand or other personal brands that we are partnering up with, because we will have exclusive discount codes for people their first month of Brighter Data. Yeah, right now you can only see one plan. That's correct, the 49 per month one. On Monday, we will release our new website with a new platform for new users, for new people. And then we will also release a tier 2, if that makes sense. Perfect. And as I said, make sure to keep your eye, for example, on my Twitter or the Twitter of other ambassadors, because we'll have a cool discount code as well for people their first month off. Are there any other questions, guys?